What's up everyone, Andrew Bain here, and on today's video we are going to be taking a look at the brand new plugin from Neural DSP. This is Archetype Petrucci. I'm sure there's going to be tons of different demos of this plugin today, so let me just set the groundwork real quick for you here. If you're interested in shredding and lead tones, this is probably not the channel for you. I don't do that stuff too much. What I do focus on is low-tuned rhythm guitar for metal. So with that being said, in this video I'm using my Aristides 080R in drop E tuning. I'm going to be playing through a song called Devoid by my band Carcosa. So first up, I'm going to show you what this plugin sounds like in a full demo mix, and then we're going to break down that demo and go through all of the different tones that I used in this track, which are of course a distorted high gain rhythm tone, a ambient lead tone, an ambient clean tone, and then a special effect tone, which is that lo-fi radio sound you've heard in countless other deathcore songs before. So if that all sounds interesting to you, I hope you enjoy this video. First up is what this plugin sounds like in a full demo mix. Okay, so now that I've shown you what this plugin sounds like in a full demo mix, we're going to go through all the features of this plugin before doing a deep dive into the guitar tones that I have created. So if you're familiar with Neural DSP's plugins, some of this will look quite familiar to you. If you watch my videos, you know I use their plugins all over the place. My band Carcosa literally used their plugins to make our entire album. So this is very good stuff. I'm a huge fan of their plugins, and I do want to give a quick thank you to them for sponsoring this video and for continuing to work with me because I genuinely love their products. Anyways, moving on. If you go into the plugin, This might look familiar to you, but we're going to go through all of it anyways. First and foremost is the amp section. So in this particular plugin, there are 4 different amp models, starting at acoustic, which is new. Apparently this sounds really good for piezo pickups and single coil pickups. I personally don't have either of those 2 options available to me, so I didn't get to test that, but for what it's worth, there it is. Next up is the clean amp, the rhythm amp, and of course the lead amp. Next up, we're going to move over to the pre-effects section. So these are the pedals that would be going before the amp section. So of course you have overdrive, phaser, chorus, and flanger. Neural DSP has had most of these effects in various other plugins of theirs, but I think they changed the phaser and the chorus pedal a little bit this time around. On the phaser pedal, they added a function where you can switch between phase or vibe, and then on the chorus pedal, you can go between normal mode or tri mode, which basically adds, 3 layers of chorus effect, which is pretty cool. In addition to those 4 effects, there is also the addition of a wah pedal, which is pretty cool. I didn't use it for my demo because wah is quite simply not an effect that I use, but it's pretty cool. You can see it kind of moving around right here. Of course, you can modulate this using your DAW's built-in automation, or if you have a MIDI foot switch or MIDI expression pedal, I guess I should say, you can also control it using that if you want to use it in like a live setting or for tracking, so you can actually track your foot movements, which is really cool. And then of course a compressor pedal. Next up, we'll move over to the cab sim section. This looks pretty much the same as any of their other plugins with a couple of differences. First and foremost, this is using John Petrucci's own cab sim, which is very cool. It sounds absolutely awesome. Most of the features are the same, which is the position, distance, mic level, and pan. That's pretty much the same as it always has been. However, they also added a new function where you can actually blend in a room mic as well. As you can see in this tone, I was using that over here. You can turn it off and on, and you can choose between close, mid, or far for your room tape. And of course, your blend of your room level into your cab sim sound. Moving on to the EQ section, again, most Neural DSP plugins have this, but they've changed it a little bit. So now it looks like they're going for more of a rack-based EQ system, where you basically have 4 knobs on the bottom for low, low mid, and high. But the difference is now you can actually select what frequency range each of these knobs has. So for example, for the low knob, you can choose between 20 Hertz to 200 Hertz. Low mid is 100 to 1K, high mid is 500 to 5K, and high is 2K to 20K. So basically you would, switch this dial to wherever you want your frequency range to be, and then you can cut or boost that accordingly there. Moving on, Neural DSP has also added a volume pedal to the end of the chain. So much like the wah pedal at the beginning, again, you can automate this in your DAW or control it via a MIDI foot switch or something like that. And then last but not least, we have the post effects section. So for this section, there is a chorus, a delay, and a reverb. Instead of having pedal-based graphics this time, they went with rack units, which is kind of cool. Looks a little bit different. The chorus is up top, then we got delay and reverb. One of my favorite things about the reverb that Neural DSP has always done is they have this shimmer function, which basically adds these like nice shimmery tones to the end of your reverb tails, which sounds really good. Their delay effects have also been really good forever. I love that you can sync it to your DAW, so whatever your BPM of your project is, it'll always be in sync. And of course, you can also change the amount of delay, so whether you want it to be quarter notes, triplet notes, whatever you want, it's all over there. And you can do that for both the right and the left channel if you want them to be delayed differently, or of course you can sync them both. And then the chorus effect is pretty much the same as the pedal. Of course, this would just be after your amp tone, so that gives you the option whether you like to have a chorus going into your amp or after your amp loop. You can do it both ways, or maybe even stack it and get crazy with it. I don't know. So just 2 more features I wanted to mention really quickly that are new to this plugin that have never been done in any of their plugins before. Number 1 is the transpose function, which is awesome. Obviously, I was really excited about this because I use a lot of pitch shift based effects in my band's music. So basically the transpose function obviously just means you can tune or detune your guitar on the fly. It looks like it has a range of an octave in either direction, which is very cool. So say you're playing guitar and you have one section of your riff where you want it to drop down by like -6 semitones, You can do that in this plugin now, which is awesome. I actually did use this function, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit throughout this song. And then the next function, which is new to this plugin, is the doubler. This is really cool for leads and clean tones. So basically you can turn that on and it makes it sound like you are basically double tracking your guitar. And then within that, you also have control over the amount of spread when you enable the doubler. Okay, so that's it for the explanation of the plugin. Of course, I didn't use all of these effects and settings throughout my demo because it's a lot more than is necessary for what I do personally. So I strongly encourage you to download the demo yourself and try it out. There is a free trial for this plugin and all of Neural DSP's plugins, so if there's some settings that I talked about there that I don't go over in this next section of the video, definitely download it and give it a try yourself. Okay, so first and foremost, we're going to talk about the high gain rhythm tone that I was using. For this tone, I was using the rhythm amp. In addition to that, I had the overdrive pedal turned on using pretty standard settings, which is the level at full, tone at full. And then I was also using a little bit of compression on the compressor pedal. And for the cab sim section, I was using the dynamic 2500 mic with the room mic mid turned on, but blended pretty low in the background just to give it a little bit more room sound, because I don't know, it was a new feature and I wanted to try it. So this is what my rhythm guitar tone sounds like. So as you can hear, it has a nice, big, crunchy sound to it that I personally think sounds really, really good. We're going to talk about a few of the settings and tweak a couple of them here. So while we're on the cab sim section, I'm going to play with that room level and room type so you guys can hear what difference that makes. So as you can hear, adding in an additional mic to your room in the plugin sounds pretty cool and is a nice way to give your tone a little bit more variety. Like I said, I personally found the mid function to sound the best. Really quickly, we'll also play with some different mics. So I'm going to switch these over to the condenser FET 301s and play that same section for you so you can hear what difference that makes. And of course, you can mix and match different mics to your choosing. You don't have to use the same one on both cones. Okay, so that's all I'm going to go through for this section. This section can really be a huge time suck and you can play with these settings all day long. But again, that's why I encourage you to download the trial and try it yourself, because I'm not going to go through them all in this video. Otherwise, it'd be like 2 hours long. Next up, we'll move over to the amp. So these were the settings that I had going on. I'm going to talk about two functions here, which are the byte and the mid boost. So I'm just going to play it again and turn those off and on so you can hear what difference those make, because those are a little bit more unique to this plugin. So as you can hear, when I had the byte and the mid boost turned off, this amp to me sounded a lot more like squishy is the best way I can describe it, which, you know, I hear a lot of people say about Mesa amps, which I'm pretty sure this is based off of. So to me, having that byte and the mid boost enabled just really kind of helped bump it up to where I need it to be, especially when I'm tuned as low as drop E. You really don't want that mushy, squishy low end. And then real quick as well, we'll just play with the overdrive pedal since that's already going on here as well. So we're going to turn that off and on. Okay, so that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about for the main rhythm guitar tone. There was an additional effect rhythm guitar tone that I had that I will mention really quick. So this was the exact same tone settings that I just showed you for the rhythm, but the difference was in the EQ section. So in the EQ section, as you can see, I cut out pretty much all the lows, all the low mids, all the highs, and then a slight cut on the high mids. And basically this gives you that like kind of lo-fi radio tone, which you hear in a lot of modern metal, and it sounds like this. Nothing too fancy to it, it's just a nice way to kind of differentiate your riffs, and you know, it's an effect that a lot of people use, so I figured I would mention it really quickly here as well. And just for some context on how that sounds when it goes in and out of the normal rhythm tone. So yeah, it can help make the next part of your song sound like it hits even harder, basically. Okay, next up we're going to talk about the lead guitar tone. The lead in the song is very simple, but the tone for it I thought was pretty cool. It's kind of like more of an ambient lead, so it's not like a super cutting guitar solo-ish tone. I called it ambient lead in my presets. So for this one, I was using the lead amp, and then in addition to that, I was using the overdrive and the phaser. The phaser was set to vibe mode, and the rate was set a little lower than halfway. And in addition to that, I had the chorus, the delay, and the reverb all enabled on the post effects section. This is what the lead guitar tone sounds like. So perhaps self-explanatory, but we're going to go through it real quick. So starting off with the pedals in the front of the amp, I'm going to turn off the phaser so you can hear what difference that makes. So just a very, very slight amount of phaser going on. We're going to boost that way higher for the sake of you being able to hear it better. So as you can hear, it kind of gives you like a little bit of a tremolo effect going on. And then we're going to move on to the post effects section where I had the chorus, the delay, and the reverb, and we're going to go through those one by one. So I'm going to turn off all three. Obviously pretty dry and boring, so when we turn on the chorus, so again, it kind of helps give some movement to the guitar tone. Then we're going to add in the delay. Again, pretty self-explanatory. You can especially hear it in the tail when I stop the playback, and then add in the reverb for the final step, and this is the lead tone. So I'm just going to go ahead and bump up the chorus a little bit more so you guys can hear what difference that makes. And then we're going to do the same thing with the delay. We're going to bump up that dry wet knob so you can hear a little bit more delay. So it gets pretty overkill pretty quickly. One really cool thing about this, which I didn't use in this particular instance of this effect, but it also has these three new functions, which is crystal, tape, and modulation. So this can help the delay tails of your tone sound a little bit different. So for example, if we bump up the crystal to like the halfway mark, obviously that is like way overkill, but you can hear that basically the actual delayed notes have this crystal quality to them. And then same for the tape effect. Basically it adds a lot of tape saturation to the delay tails. And then finally moving on to the reverb, once again I'm just going to play with a few of the knobs while I play the tone. So as you can hear, when you turn on the shimmer function, it has that nice shimmery delay, or sorry, shimmery tail end to your reverb, which is very nice. I just wasn't using it in this particular example. The final thing I want to mention about the lead tone is that I was using the transpose function. In this particular instance, I was kind of using it as like a whammy effect, because for this song, it's basically whammying between an octave up and down on one of the notes. So you can see within my DAW, I basically have it automating the transpose function to be plus 12. So if you pay attention to this section right here, you'll see when it kicks in. So yeah, it's a pretty cool way to kind of simulate a whammy if you don't have an actual whammy pedal on hand. I also did this in the rhythm guitar tone over in one of the breakdowns, which I'll show you really quickly as well. So again, if you pay attention to this transpose function, you'll see when it kicks in. So in this example, I was just using it as an extra effect to make that like pick slide sound even more disgusting. Okay, and the final tone that we're going to talk about is of course the clean guitar tone. So for this example, I was using the clean amp. I wanted to use the acoustic amp, but again, as kind of their manual explains, it is a little bit better for piezo and acoustic guitar, and that's not what I was using. I was using a single bridge pickup on an 8-string guitar, so to me the clean amp actually sounded a little bit better. In addition to that, I had the chorus effect going on before the amp this time, and on the end of it, I turned the chorus off since I had it as a pre-chorus, I guess you could call it. And then of course I had delay and reverb one more time. This time around the delay was a little bit more wet because the guitar tone is a little bit more dry, so I wanted to kind of bring that up. And as I mentioned in the lead example, there is this crystal and tape function on the delay, which in this case I actually did use, and I bumped that up to about 40% for both. And I think that's about it. So let's take a listen to what the clean tone sounds like. So yeah, like I mentioned in the previous example, having that crystal effect on the delay I thought was super cool because it's a way to help differentiate the delayed notes from the actual pick attack. So yeah, we're going to play the clean tone one more time, but turn off the delay and reverb effects so you can hear what it would have sounded like if it was a more dry clean tone. So yeah, still sounds pretty good as is, but obviously I wanted it to have way more space, so I enabled that chorus, which helped it sound like this. Kind of made it a little bit wider sounding. And then moving over to the delay and reverb. So yeah, I was really happy with how this tone came out. The only other thing I had going on was I was also using the doubler function because I only tracked this once, so it helped make this single guitar track take up way more space in the mix and sound a lot wider than it otherwise would have. So I'll play it without the doubler and then turn the doubler on so you can hear what difference that makes. So as you can hear, basically immediately it takes up way more stereo width, which sounds really good. And if you're feeling lazy and don't want to double track your guitars, this is a good way to kind of navigate that issue, let's say. Okay, I think that's going to be it for this video. Once again, if you enjoyed this video and are curious to try this plugin for yourself, please go download the free trial. It's literally free. You can try it yourself and see if it works in your workflow, and that is, in my opinion, the best way to see if it's a right fit for you. I want to give a big thank you to Neural DSP for sponsoring this video. As I mentioned earlier, they have been a long-time supporter of my channel, and I genuinely love their products. I use them all across the board, even more than my physical amps, because they sound so good and they are so convenient. And last but not least, I also want to give you a big thank you to all my Patreon members whose names are on the screen at this point in time. If you're interested in audio downloads, guitar tabs, stems, or a shout out on the screen, you can find all of that over on my Patreon page. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.